A study from the University of St. Andrews found that women's attraction to older men increases by up to 60% when they display specific behavioral traits. Not wealth, not status, behaviors. And here's the uncomfortable truth most older men don't want to hear. Age alone isn't the advantage you think it is. What you do with that age, that's what makes women lose their composure around you. I'm about to show you exactly what separates the older men women obsess over from the ones they politely friend zone. Let me be direct with you. There's a massive gap between older men who attract women effortlessly and older men who struggle despite having more experience, more resources, and more stability than younger guys. And that gap has nothing to do with looking younger or having more money. I know plenty of wealthy, older men who couldn't generate attraction if their life depended on it. I also know older men with average income who have women fighting for their attention. The difference? 4 specific behaviors that trigger something primal in the female brain. Research from evolutionary psychology consistently shows that women aren't actually attracted to age itself. They're attracted to what age is supposed to represent: wisdom, stability, capability, and emotional regulation. The problem is that most older men never actually develop these traits. They just assume age automatically delivers them. It doesn't. So what you're going to learn in this video are the 4 things that actually cash the check that age writes. These are behaviors I've seen transform how women respond to older men almost overnight. And the 4th one is so counterintuitive that most men do the exact opposite, actively repelling women while thinking they're being attractive. But before we get into the first behavior, I need to address something important. Why does this even work? Why do women respond so intensely to these specific traits in older men but not younger ones? The answer involves some fascinating neuroscience that most people have never heard of, and it explains why some older men have an almost unfair advantage when they get this right. Here's something that shocked me when I first learned it. Dr. David Buss, one of the world's leading evolutionary psychologists, found that women across 37 different cultures consistently preferred men who were on average 3.4 years older. But that number increases dramatically when certain behavioral markers are present. The reason connects to something called parental investment theory. Women have historically faced greater biological investment in reproduction, pregnancy, nursing, and early childcare. This created an evolutionary pressure to select partners who demonstrated the ability to provide resources and protection over time. Not just in the moment, over time. Here's the key insight: younger men can promise these things. Older men can prove them, but only if their behavior demonstrates it. A 25-year-old can say he's reliable. A 45-year-old who has actually navigated life challenges, maintained stability, and developed emotional control has evidence. Women's attraction systems evolved to read that evidence. The behaviors I'm about to share are the specific signals that communicate this evidence directly to her subconscious. Now let's get into the first behavior. The first thing that makes women genuinely weak in the knees around older men is something I call the storm anchor effect. Here's what this looks like in practice. Something goes wrong. Maybe it's a minor inconvenience, a restaurant losing your reservation, or a major crisis, a car breaking down on a trip. While everyone around him is stressed, complaining, or panicking, the older man who triggers intense attraction responds with a calm that borders on eerie. Not passive, not detached. Calm, controlled, already problem-solving. This was fascinating to me when I started researching it. Dr. Judith Orloff, a psychiatrist at UCLA, published research showing that emotional contagion is strongest from those we perceive as leaders. When a man remains calm during stress, the woman with him actually experiences a reduction in her own cortisol levels. His calm literally changes her neurochemistry. Now, here's why this is so powerful specifically for older men. When a younger man stays calm during chaos, women often interpret it as him not understanding the severity of the situation. He's calm because he's clueless. But when an older man stays calm during chaos, women interpret it as him having faced worse. He's calm because he's capable. Same behavior. Completely different interpretation based on age context. I want to tell you about something I observed that perfectly illustrates this. I was at a dinner party where the host, a man in his early 50s, had a small kitchen fire break out. Nothing dangerous, but enough to create smoke and panic among the guests. While everyone was shouting, grabbing phones, pointing, this man calmly grabbed a pot lid, smothered the flame, opened a window, and then with the most relaxed voice said, Well, that's one way to get everyone's attention before dessert. Every woman in that room looked at him differently after that. One literally said to me later, "I suddenly understood why his wife married him." The mistake most older men make is confusing calm with passivity. They think being calm means being quiet, being uninvolved, letting things happen. No. The attractive calm is active. It's calm while engaging, calm while solving, calm while leading. It's saying through your behavior, "I've got this and I've got you." Younger men often respond to stress by either escalating their energy to match the problem or by shutting down entirely. Neither response triggers attraction. The older man who has genuinely developed emotional regulation responds by becoming the fixed point in a swirling environment. Dr. John Gottman's research on relationship stability found that the single biggest predictor of relationship success is how couples handle stress together. Women subconsciously evaluate potential partners by watching their stress responses. An older man who demonstrates unshakable calm is communicating that life with him would feel stable, safe, manageable. And in a world that feels increasingly chaotic, that communication hits differently than it did 20 years ago. But here's the thing, this calm can't be performed. Women detect fake calm almost instantly. If you're internally panicking but externally pretending to be calm, your micro-expressions, voice fluctuations, and body language will betray you. This is why this trait is so rare and so valuable. It has to be authentic. The men who have it usually developed it through actual life experience, through facing enough storms that they genuinely lost their fear of them, through understanding that most problems that feel catastrophic in the moment are minor inconveniences a year later. The second behavior that makes women genuinely crazy about older men is something I've noticed women talk about constantly but rarely name directly. I call it autonomous leadership. Here's the pattern. An older man suggests dinner. He doesn't ask, "Where do you want to go?" and then respond to every restaurant suggestion with, "Sure, if that's what you want." Instead, he says, "There's a place I've been wanting to try. I think you'd love it. Friday at 7 works?" He's made a decision, expressed his interest, offered a time, left room for her to adjust if needed, but not requiring her to do any of the mental labor. This was genuinely surprising when I looked at the research. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that women rate men as significantly more attractive when they display what researchers called benevolent decisiveness. That's leadership that considers her needs without requiring her to direct every step. Here's the contrast. Younger men have been socialized heavily toward asking permission. They've been taught that any decision that affects a woman should require her explicit input first. On the surface, this seems respectful. In practice, it often transfers all the decision-making burden onto her while giving him an escape route if the decision doesn't work out. "You picked this restaurant, not me." Older men who attract women understand something subtle. There's a difference between domineering and decisive. Domineering ignores her input and forces outcomes. Decisive takes initiative, makes suggestions, and remains flexible if she has strong preferences. The attractive older man says, "I made us reservations at this Italian place for Saturday. If you hate Italian, tell me and I'll change it, but I think you'll love their pasta." He's led. He's shown he was thinking about her. He's left room for adjustment, but he hasn't put the work of planning on her shoulders. Women are exhausted from being asked to make every decision: where to eat, what to do, which movie to watch, when to meet. A man who can take that burden while remaining genuinely attentive to her preferences is giving her something increasingly rare. I heard a woman at a coffee shop describe a date with an older man, and she used this exact phrase: "He just handled everything. I didn't have to think. I just got to enjoy the evening." She said it with this look on her face that told me everything. She wasn't describing control. She was describing relief. But let me be clear about what this isn't. This isn't about ignoring her wishes or making decisions that override her comfort. That's not attractive. That's concerning. The distinction is between leading and controlling. Leading says, "I'll take the initiative unless you want something different." Controlling says, "We're doing this whether you want to or not." Older men have more credibility with decisiveness because they've presumably made enough decisions in their lives to have developed good judgment. A 23-year-old insisting on choosing everything might come across as arrogant without experience. A 50-year-old who confidently navigates decisions comes across as competent. And competence, by the way, is consistently rated as one of the most attractive traits across all research on female attraction. Not just competence in some abstract skill, competence in navigating life. The mistake older men make here is swinging too far toward deference. They've been told that women want equality, so they interpret that as abdicating all initiative. They wait to be told what to do. They ask permission for things that don't require permission. They outsource every choice to her. This isn't partnership. This is burden shifting disguised as respect. Now we get into territory that might make some people uncomfortable. The third thing that makes women lose their composure around older men is what I call calibrated emotional scarcity. Before anyone misinterprets this, I'm not talking about playing games, being cold, or withholding affection to manipulate. I'm talking about something far more sophisticated. The older man who drives women crazy doesn't give everything immediately. He doesn't overwhelm her with attention, compliments, and availability from day one. He creates something that younger men often completely miss: space for her to wonder. Here's the psychology. Dr. Aaron's research on attraction found that uncertainty about a partner's feelings actually increases romantic interest. This is why the early stages of relationships often feel more intense than later stages. There's mystery, questions, unknown territory to navigate. Most men, especially older men who feel grateful for female attention, make the mistake of complete emotional transparency from the start. They communicate exactly how they feel, how much they want her, how interested they are. They're available whenever she calls. They respond instantly. They say yes to everything. On paper, this seems right. In practice, it eliminates the tension that drives attraction. The older man who understands calibrated scarcity creates a different dynamic. He's warm when he's present, genuinely interested, attentive, but he also has a life, interests, and priorities that don't revolve around her. He takes time to respond sometimes, not as a game, but because he was genuinely busy doing something. He can't meet Tuesday because he has plans and he doesn't feel the need to explain what they are. This is incredibly attractive because it communicates high value without saying a word. Here's where age becomes an advantage. A younger man being unavailable often reads as disorganized, unreliable, or playing games. An older man being unavailable reads as having a full life, established priorities, and self-respect. I want to give you an example of how this plays out. A woman I know was dating a man in his late 40s. She told me she was losing her mind over him. When I asked why, she said, "I never quite know where I stand with him. He's amazing when we're together, but he doesn't need me, and that makes me want him more." Compare that to another woman who dated a younger guy who texted constantly, was always available, and verbally expressed his feelings multiple times daily. Her description? "I felt suffocated. There was nothing to work for. He gave me everything before I even asked." The first man created space for her desire to grow. The second eliminated that space with over-availability. Now, here's the critical nuance. This isn't about being cold or distant. The older man who does this well is genuinely present and engaged when he's with her. The scarcity is in his availability, not his warmth. When he's there, he's fully there. He's just not always there. This requires what older men should have developed, a life that genuinely exists independent of romantic attention. Hobbies, friendships, work he cares about, personal goals. When your life is full, scarcity happens naturally. You're not manufacturing it. You're simply living a complete life and making room for her within it. The mistake older men make is thinking that more availability demonstrates more interest, and that more interest leads to more attraction. The opposite is usually true. Strategic scarcity creates psychological space for her attraction to intensify. Now we arrive at the fourth thing, and honestly, this is the one that surprises men the most. It's also the one that distinguishes the older men women obsess over from the ones they merely tolerate. I call this dynamic tension, and it involves doing something that contradicts almost everything older men think they should do. Here's what most older men believe. They think that because they're older, they need to compensate by being extra nice, extra agreeable, extra complimentary. They think their age is a disadvantage that they offset with excessive approval. This is completely wrong, and it destroys attraction almost instantly. The older man who makes women crazy does something counterintuitive. He teases her, he challenges her. He doesn't agree with everything she says. He playfully calls her out when she's being ridiculous. He treats her as an equal who can handle a little friction, not as a delicate flower who needs constant validation. Research from Dr. Helen Fisher at Rutgers found that romantic love actually requires a certain amount of adversity to maintain intensity. Relationships that are too smooth with no friction or challenge often fade into comfortable but passionless routines. The older man who understands this creates small moments of playful conflict. She says something silly, and instead of nodding along, he laughs and says, "That might be the most ridiculous thing I've heard today." She's late for a date, and instead of saying it's fine when it isn't, he raises an eyebrow and says, "I was starting to think you'd stood me up. I had backup dinner plans with my neighbor's cat." This isn't cruel. This isn't negging. This is treating her as someone capable of handling adult banter rather than someone who needs constant reassurance. Here's why this works especially well for older men. When a younger man teases a woman, it can come across as immature or insecure. He might actually be trying to hurt her ego because he feels threatened, but when an older man teases a woman, it reads as confident, secure, even affectionate. He's playing with her because he's comfortable, not because he's compensating. And here's the key. The playful challenge has to be balanced with genuine appreciation. He teases her about being late, but he also tells her she looks incredible when she arrives. He challenges her opinions, but he also genuinely listens to her perspective and acknowledges when she makes a good point. He's not agreeable, but he's not combative either. This creates what psychologists call an intermittent reinforcement pattern. Sometimes she gets the tease. Sometimes she gets the compliment. She never knows exactly which one is coming, and that unpredictability is genuinely addictive to the human brain. I want to tell you about an interaction I witnessed that demonstrates this perfectly. A man in his 50s was on a date with a woman in her late 30s. She was telling a story about her job, and he interrupted to say, "Wait, you actually said that to your boss? Are you trying to get fired, or do you just enjoy chaos?" She laughed and said, "I wasn't going to let him talk to me that way." He smiled and said, "Okay, I respect it. You're clearly the person I want on my side in a fight, just maybe not the person I want negotiating a raise." She was laughing, slightly offended, and completely engaged. 10 minutes later, he told her genuinely that he admired how direct she was and that most people lack that kind of courage. Tease, challenge, genuine appreciation, the combination is intoxicating. The mistake older men make is believing that age means they should be serious, respectful, and dignified at all times. They suppress playfulness because they think it's immature. In reality, playfulness from an older man is incredibly attractive precisely because it's unexpected. The younger men are supposed to be playful. The older men are supposed to be serious. So when an older man is playful, secure enough to joke and tease, he breaks expectations in a way that captures attention. And captured attention is the first step toward genuine attraction. Now here's something I haven't mentioned yet. These 4 behaviors don't work in isolation. They work together as a complete picture of what maturity is supposed to look like. Unshakable calm shows emotional stability. Autonomous leadership shows competence. Calibrated scarcity shows high value. Playful challenge shows security. Together, they communicate a message that speaks directly to a woman's deepest attraction triggers. This man has his life figured out. He doesn't need me for validation. He wants me because I add value to his already complete life. That's the fundamental shift. Most men, regardless of age, pursue women from a position of need. They want attention, validation, companionship. Their pursuit communicates scarcity. The older man who displays these 4 behaviors pursues from a position of abundance. He's offering something, not asking for it. His pursuit communicates value. Dr. Robert Cialdini's research on persuasion identified scarcity as one of the most powerful influence principles. We want what's less available. The older man who is emotionally stable, decisive, strategically unavailable, and playfully challenging presents himself as scarce, not artificially scarce, genuinely high value and therefore naturally limited in availability. Before I wrap up, I need to address the mistakes I see older men making constantly. These are the behaviors that neutralize all the advantages of age and experience. Mistake 1, apologizing for their age. When an older man makes self-deprecating comments about being old, out of touch, or past his prime, he's doing the work of undermining himself so she doesn't have to. Never draw attention to your age as a disadvantage. Mistake 2, trying to seem younger. Dressing in clothes designed for 20-year-olds. Using slang that sounds forced. Pretending to understand references he doesn't actually get. Women don't want an older man pretending to be younger. They want an older man who is comfortable being older. Mistake 3, over-pursuing. The older man who texts constantly, is always available, and showers her with attention is communicating that he hasn't had female attention in a long time. This is not attractive regardless of his other qualities. Mistake 4, avoiding all physical assertiveness. Some older men become so worried about being seen as creepy that they eliminate all physical escalation. They never touch, never move closer, never create any physical tension. This reads as lack of interest or lack of confidence, neither of which triggers attraction. The older man who understands attraction isn't performing youth, he's demonstrating what youth should have evolved into. So let me bring this all together. Women don't go crazy for older men automatically. They go crazy for older men who display the traits that age is supposed to develop. Emotional stability that comes from having weathered storms. Decisiveness that comes from having made countless decisions and learned from them. Self-possession that comes from a life full enough that female attention is a bonus, not a necessity. Playful confidence that comes from no longer needing to prove anything to anyone. These 4 behaviors, unshakable calm, autonomous leadership, calibrated scarcity, and playful challenge, are the signals that communicate everything a woman's attraction systems evolved to seek in a long-term partner. The beautiful irony is that younger men could display these traits too, but they rarely have the life experience to have genuinely developed them. Older men have that experience, but most of them waste it by either not developing these traits or by believing their age is a disadvantage that needs compensating. It isn't. Age is an advantage, but only if you cash it in correctly. So here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to subscribe. I don't want you to ring any bells. I want you to pick one of these 4 behaviors and focus on it for the next 30 days. Not all 4. 1. Master it. Make it instinctive, then move to the next. In 90 to 120 days, you'll have integrated all 4, and you'll notice something strange. Women will start responding to you differently, not because you changed your age, not because you got richer or more successful, because you started displaying the traits your age should have already given you. That's the real advantage of being an older man, not the age itself, what you do with it. Now, everything I've shared today is about what you should do. But here's what I haven't covered yet, and this is equally important. You also need to recognize when a woman is already responding to you. Because here's the truth most men miss completely. Women signal their attraction constantly through physical touch, and they disguise it as accidental so well that most men don't even register it's happening. That video appearing on your screen right now breaks down the specific touches that are never accidents, the ones women use when they're already interested but don't want to say it directly. It's called When She Touches. It's not an accident. It's a clear sign. If you master the 4 behaviors from this video and then learn to recognize those signals from that one, you'll be operating with information most men never access. Click it now. Seriously. This combination is what changes everything.